go to Weasel guy. The Weasel say, pop, yeah, come.
Yeah. Half a pound of tuppenny rice, half a pound of treacle. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel.
A friend in need is a pest.
You're gonna be a successful WWF villain hated by millions.
We get home about 2 o'clock in the morning. Bruiser hands me $5 for the night. Now I'm thinking to myself, I've got to get up now at 7 in the morning to go to work. I've just been to Louisville, Kentucky, and managed some people I don't really manage. I was almost hung. I was almost beat to death by a man with a nightstick. I was almost beaten up by Johnny Valentine. I saw this horrendous accident where a man was alive and on fire for $5. And all I could think of is, this is for me. When can I go do this again? And that's how I started. That was my first day in the business.
Oh my God.
And from then on, I've been in the business. And I went to work, and the guy at the car dealership, after a couple of weeks, found out what I was doing. And he said, how could you be in such a degrading profession? And I said, degrading profession? You're a car dealer. When these people come through the doors, you take those poor bastards and drop them to their knees. All we're doing is entertaining people. And one thing people got to remember, everybody said, oh, that's all fake. Isn't wrestling fake? We never said it was real. You said it was fake.
Yeah.
Before you see Roseanne's show on TV, they don't announce that her and Goodman aren't married.
Yeah.
It's just a show. It's just a television show. So that was it. I was hooked. I was now in the business. The guy told me he didn't want me working there. It was a dishonorable profession. I said, what do you mean? You cheat people? You lie to them about your cars? I chased them around the desk. They fired me. I went home and told Bruiser I don't have a part-time job, a regular job anymore. This is what I'm going to do full-time. And that's how I started full-time. And I didn't make a whole lot more than I made at the Ford dealership. He wasn't a very good payoff guy. He would never give you $50, he'd give you $45. He'd never give you $100, he'd give you $90. He'd give you $190, not $200. So I figured every time he saved $10 on a guy over a year, he made pretty good money.
Yeah,
So, and that's how I started.
Huh. What about any memories from when just initially being around and selling Cokes and all that? Any stories from there? Any recollections?
I remember the Sheik, he didn't speak English, he was from Beirut, and he threw fire, and he really terrified people. He was an Arab, and he really looked scary. And I'd had my Cokes, and we knew each other, and he'd chase me sometimes down the aisle. Oh, it was very exciting. I didn't know what I'd do if he caught me, but he wouldn't catch me, but he got the people all excited, thinking I was going to catch me and hurt this poor kid selling Cokes. And I can remember that, and I can remember sneaking down the dressing rooms and listening to him talk. So I knew it wasn't real from the beginning. Yeah. I'd been in a fight. Yeah. And I know fights last about 20 seconds. They don't last an hour. And you just don't you never seen Ditka turn the referee around and two guys from the Bears come out, clothesline a guy, give the other guy the football, spike it, he turns the ref back around, touchdown. You never look in a dugout at a baseball game and see a masked guy in the Cubs.
Yeah.
So I just knew this was entertainment.
Yeah. What about the early years after that first day? Where did you kind of go from there?
Well, I worked around Indiana from 65 until 69. And all those times around there, we worked a lot of fair dates. I worked around Indianapolis, Chicago, St. Louis TV. St. Louis used to give me TV on a Monday night at the Chase Park Plaza Hotel. The promoter was Sam Mushnick. And it was the damnedest TV you ever saw. Because it wasn't like studio TV. This was a dining room. And they had the ring in the middle of it. And they had tables and chairs. And everybody came in suits and furs. And they served dinner during the matches. And it was from the dining room there. All the matches, there were no disqualifications. They were all finishes. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. And there was some place, I remember in Pittsburgh, you could only get 20 people to come to TV, so they had a backdrop curtain with faces drawn on it. And they dimmed the lights, so it looked like the place was full of 50 people. Which was a lot, I guess, for them. And at the Armory in Indianapolis, sometimes Bruiser and Snyder became the promoters there then. And they would tape like 6 matches on a Tuesday night. In those days, you didn't start till 8:30 at night. So you got maybe 75 guys in the back there for 6 tapes, and you got 20 fans out there. So after about the first 2 hours of taping, everybody's going home. So he just had the boys get dressed in their clothes and go sit in the stands. So it looked like a packed place. There was one bleacher, we had one camera, and it looked like there was 100 people there. But there were the boys dressed waiting to wrestle. And then half the guys would fall asleep, and then he'd take this music from the Bears game, and he'd put it in underneath. And it sounded like 50,000 people were cheering. You had 4 guys asleep in the front row, 9 guys back there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was how TV was done at television studios. And they never shot anything from the arenas that I could remember. It was always done in a TV studio. Or Armies, they made tapes. But
in the place where they had dinner, did that ever interfere with? I mean, did a match? The match never spilled out of the ring, did it?
No, they didn't have. They didn't. In those days, you didn't bang a guy's head into a guy's bowl of soup.
Yeah.
You didn't power bomb a guy through a table.
Exactly.
People sat there, and they had one of the announcers was the ring announcer, Mickey Garagiola, Joe's brother, and he had huge head of hair, where Joe has no hair.
Yeah.
And Mickey was a maitre d' at a restaurant there in St. Louis, and a guy named George Abel was the ring a commentator, and just had one commentator, no color man, nothing, and he would bring a guy down and do an interview on the floor. But no, there was the heels and the baby faces, and there was heat. People would yell and scream, but no one threw anything. No one got out of their chairs and tried to fight anybody or anything. The fight never spilled out into the floor. Matter of fact, St. Louis never used interviews. They'd maybe do one in a 3-week program going into the show. Maybe one interview in the 3 weeks, and be a baby face. Sam just didn't like heat. So I also was the first manager ever to be used in St. Louis in the NWA in 1968, I think. And then you worked your match at the Kiel Auditorium, which was downtown. But it was different. There were people all dressed up, and the women had furs on. And I remember the Army where the women would. Well, they didn't give them checks at Denny's. They just looked at the front of their dress and knew what they had. You had the eggs, you had the chicken, you had the chili. And I used to see people come there and take their coin purses and just pour them out on the counter and count the change out and buy enough tickets to get in. I don't know how they got home. But, in those days, ringside was $3. General admission was $1.50, and grandstand was $2. So, and I remember the promotion would always tell you, they tell you if the house was $10,000, they tell you if the house was $8,000, they tell you it was 10 to make you feel good. And they pay you on 6.
Yeah.
So there's no way you could ever count a house. You were in the dressing room, so you never got a fair count. I don't think.
So you started, now the common misconception is you started as a wrestler and then you became a manager, but you started as a manager.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the wrestling end of it? When did that start?
Almost right away, because they saw I could take bumps.
Yeah.
See, my thinking was, when I started as a manager, I'd seen managers before, and usually a manager was a guy that was over the hill, was hanging around to get a couple paydays, a couple years left, and the promoter was using him because of his name, and a guy like Freddie Blassie, in his 80s, couldn't wrestle anymore, but he had a name, so they used him to talk for maybe a guy that couldn't talk.
Yeah.
But I saw that these guys were older guys, and they were on their way out. And they always managed the same way. They always had a cane and hit a guy with it. Well, I never wanted to use a cane, because when I used a cane, that means coming out of the ring, one of my hands were busy. I couldn't defend myself. I didn't want to hit anybody with a cane and have a lawsuit. So I wanted my hands free. Plus, I took bumps. No, I can't take a bump with a cane in the hand. That cane's going to fly out of my hand. That means some fan's going to get it and give it back to me. The hard way. And I thought to myself, I'm going to manage like a wrestler and wrestle like a manager. Which means When I'm on the floor and my man's getting hit, I'm going to register too. I'm going to sell like my man's selling. I'm not going to take bumps, but I'm going to invest in this guy. I'm supposed to be his manager. I'm going to be concerned about him. So when it did come time to me to get brought into the ring, that's when I started begging off. And I just had the ability to take bumps. And that's when I started. I said, I'm going to manage like a wrestler and work like a manager. And after a while, they just started using me both ways because it's cheaper. You can use me as a wrestler and manager, and I have one guy to pay for doing two jobs. And that's what happened. And the first guy I wrestled was an African-American named Calvin Prince Poland, who was the bouncer at Bruiser's Bar called the Harem. And Calvin, I had my first match with, and a guy from after the Assassins, I went and managed another team. Assassins split up, and then I managed this team of Angelo Poffo, who's the father of Randy Macho Man Savage, and a guy named Chris Markov, a hard-headed guy from Yugoslavia. And Chris was a little backwards. He was dyslexic in the ring. He'd say, "Watch the kick." After he'd kicked him, he'd kick you in the groin so hard. On the way down, you'd hear him say, "Watch the kick." I told him, I said, "You beat Nick one more time, you get to keep him."
To put the word in the streets.